Maybe we're just now starting. Maybe, all right, we are live. You know what? I've been talking to you for the last 5 minutes, but I didn't realize that I had not pushed all the buttons, which is my issue, not yours. So everything's fine. I'm glad you're here. Robbie from Bromley and Liz uh, coming on. And so I think all the channels are now lit up. So that's good. That's really good. Okay, I'll start over. Today's topic is micropeace. And micropeace is something that I have a little bit of trepidation about trying to present on this because, like, who am I in this war-torn world to talk about peace, micropeace? But nevertheless, we watch these things every evening and we watch in horror, and sometimes we're just unable to turn away. And then when we do meet in person, the conversation seems to always turn around to something that sounds like this. Someone says, I can't believe what is happening. I can't believe what is happening. I can't bear to watch it. Another person says, I don't believe this will ever end. Another one says, I don't believe that peace is possible. And the last is always, and so what can I do? What can I do? You know, in my mother's last years, she stopped watching the news altogether. And when I would visit her, I would say, how can you do that? You know, you're being an ostrich. You've stuck your head in the sand. How can you hide your head in the sand and ignore what's going on in the world? And now, of course, today, I totally understand the ostrich urge, because the enormity of the current wars and the imminent threat of further warfare overwhelms us. We feel incapable of doing anything, and yet at the same time we feel that not doing anything is passive or condoning. So I struggled with this, and struggling with this. I went for a walk and I went to the bookstore, and I came across this book called They Flew, A History of the Impossible by Carlos Ayer. And I was struck by that, you know, the history of the impossible, because I'd been thinking about the impossible all day. Well, the book really is about, he uses, to frame up his arguments, he uses stories about medieval times when levitation was not that uncommon, especially among saints and witches, whichever way you wanted to look at it, and by location. And he talks about how those things were portrayed in art and written about and taken for a fact because they happened. Whereas nowadays we would say they were impossible. So I was really struck by his ongoing comments on belief and possibility. And I want to just read one to you. I could read several, but I'm going to read one to you, which is where he says, history teaches us that the power of belief should never be underestimated, neither in the present or the past, nor perhaps in the future as well. Its power is a constant, always there in the profane as much as in the sacred, ever on the edge of surging, ever ready to be tapped for good or ill. Power is a constant, always there in the profane as much as the sacred, ever on the edge of surging, ever ready to be tapped for good or for ill. The power of belief. And then he goes on to say, belief is the immortal soul of the imagination. Anything is possible. And I read that and I thought, okay, can I believe in peace? Simple as that. Can I believe in peace? And I thought about, what can I do? You know, if the power of belief and the belief in peace is within me, what can I do with that? So glad to see all you other people coming in. I think I finally pushed the right button. Lisa, Sky, Guy, Jane, great, thank you. Sandy, wonderful, thank you. All right, so what can I do? What can I do? And I thought about this and I gave it quite a bit of thought because I felt like I was motivated to do something. And I wanted to do something around peace, but it just seemed so enormous. So I thought, all right, what if I think about micro peace, small bites of this? And the first thing I came up with was what I call a peace diet. I put myself on a peace diet. And the way it works is for every minute that I watch this news, this war, etc., on my device, for every minute I watch, excuse me, I commit to spending an equal amount of time praying for peace, one-on-one. Now, if the word praying it doesn't work for you, meditating deeply and spiritually on the possibility of peace. So for every minute I watch the news, commit to spending an equal amount of time believing in peace. One for one, minute for minute, hour for hour. And if you don't have time to pray that long, then watch the news for a shorter time, I told myself. Which, in order to establish equilibrium, dramatically decreased the amount of screen time I had. I still do it. I still have myself on the peace diet, but it's cut down. It's cut down how much time I spend only on the negative news and the bad news and more on the possibility of peace. So that's technique number one, and it works for me, excuse me, most of the time. The second technique I use, and this is one that I use with my writing students, I call it observe and capture. And observe and capture means, in the writing context, it means to have a writer's mind, you have to be able to observe things and capture them, right away so you can use them. And it helps you to develop a consciousness about what's going on. So I thought I'd share with you one this is from my own life, that I observed and later captured in my journal. And it's about a time way back when, in probably the early 80s, I would think, I was riding shotgun, or I was out with a friend of mine who was a photojournalist. And he had been called to come to the Navajo Hopi lands to cover what the local and national headlines at that time proclaimed as the conflict between the tribes, or even more florid, ancient tensions. And there was a lot of news about these ancient tensions that were rising up, brought on by the issue of mining rights on the reservations. So, to keep these tribal enemies, these are not my words, tribal enemies, apart, the Peabody Company has erected a fence bifurcating their territories, or delineating, bifurcating their territories, this huge fence. So there we were driving along, and we started out at midnight. We met up with the writer who was going to write the story, and we were following him, not knowing where we're going, because in the middle of the night, there are no lights out on the reservation, and there are nothing but tail lights of the vehicle ahead leading the way. And eventually no known roads, because out there aren't any paved roads or long and straight roads. There are just old ways, or old known ways, some of them mapped and many of them unspoken. And eventually the lightning eastern sky reveals shadows of buttes and bluffs. And at last we come to the destination, and in the pre-dawn light, we see a heavy barbed wire fence across the land as far as you can see. and dozens of vehicles, most of them old and work vehicles, parked askew and empty on both sides of the fence. And small crowds are gathering on either side of the fence, too, along either side. Round faces on one and sculpted faces on the other. And their breaths are steaming and their hands are in their pockets, and there are a lot of silent children around. And the sun is just at the horizon now, and the peoples spread along the fence line facing each other. And it seems as if something big is about to happen. And as the sky begins to blaze with light, the people at the fence move closer to one another, and they reach into their pockets all at the same time, and they bring out hand-sized pieces of dark metal. Weapons? Yes. Fence cutters, wrench-sized. And in unison, they begin to cut through the fence. Sunrise, fence cutting. And as the sun breaks the horizon, there was a beautiful image because a lone runner wearing only red shorts appeared far down the road, and long brown legs and black hair streaming and feet sounding like a drum as they touch the earth, coming across the miles toward them, or toward us, to pass through the gap in the wire. Yeah. Sunrise, fence cutting, micro piece. So here we are, and we observe and capture. And the trick is to actively watch for moments of peace in your daily life. And when I say the moments of peace, I don't mean just serenity, like I'm feeling relaxed and happy. I mean moments of peace where there was dissension or the possibility of conflict or dissension that gives way to peace in some form. And acknowledge that even as you see it, even as a corner of your eye. Acknowledge even the tiniest moment when dissension gives way to agreement. Even something simple, for instance, like feuding neighbors who get together to rebuild after a natural disaster. Or simpler yet, two players from a very fierce competition shaking hands after the game. Or an unexpected easy merge into heavy traffic. Observe and capture. Deliberately hold this image, whatever this image is in your mind, and celebrate the peace of it, flowing out and affecting the larger world. So you capture it so you don't forget. You can write this, you can paint it, you can dance it, you can sing it, but don't let it just slide past your consciousness. Say, I saw that. That was peace right there. Only lasted a minute, but hey, I saw it. So observe and capture. And believe me, the more you do it, the more you'll see it, because now, as Eyre says in the book, which somebody just asked, is called They Flew, he talks about the fact that if we think something is impossible, or if we believe something is impossible, and something happens like that, we tend to turn our heads away and not see it because it's not possible. We have to train our eye and train our mind and train our hearts to see the possible. All right, so I see someone's got questions about mining rights. I'm not here to discuss the issues. I'm here to talk about our reaction to issues when we see them. Okay, So the third technique that I use is visualization. And before we go to that, I just see a few things. Like, I danced a lot outside and loved the freedom of it. Silent children, an effective descriptor, right? Observe, capture, and treasure. I love that, Diana. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. The tribes recognized a fence is just a cage, right? But they didn't just leave it at that. They cut it through, and they cut it together. That was the micro piece. So the third thing that I use regularly is visualization, and I know that you do too. I've been with you before. So I think we'll do a little visualization here at this time. And if for some reason you don't want to visualize, draw a picture or doodle or write a word or two about what we just talked about, the beauty of presence in order to be able to see the possibilities of peace. Thank you, Karen. Very nice. Very nice. So let's do a little visualization, and then we'll talk some more. So you can start by getting comfortable. You can imagine yourself walking out from your room where you are, perhaps into your grove, if that's where you go to meditate and visualize, or to your sanctuary, if you've built a sanctuary, or even just a cozy end of the couch, somewhere where you can let the day go by and just go in, okay? So we'll start by breathing. So we'll do 4 in and 4 out. 4 in and 4 out. Just gently slowing your breath down. 4 in, 4 out. And when your mind is quiet, recall or imagine a time when you witnessed peace. Any moment, real or potential, where dissension gives way to agreement. And deliberately hold this in your mind. Yes, any moment, real or potential, can be something you wish to see. where dissension gives way to agreement. And fill yourself with this. Even if it's a sliver or a crack of light. And then become a channel for it. And imagine it flowing out and affecting the larger world. And imagine your sliver of peace connecting with other slivers of peace, or other flashes of light connecting with other flashes of life and light, and we together build an aura of peace in the world. And when you think you've done this, start to reorient to the world here, the world of your space, your grove, your sanctuary, your corner of the house. Reconnect, bring this sliver of peace with you as you re-enter the room. Reorient, and slowly open your eyes. Hi. Hi. All right. So I'm seeing more comments about being able to see a beautiful world. This is important. Even for a moment, if we can see a beautiful world, it can offset the incredible imbalance that we have elsewhere in the world. So, how is it possible to speak about something that can't possibly happen? Well, we have to practice. We have to practice. Okay. So I call this micro peace as the answer to what can I do? And I see people saying practical, hopeful, and beautiful. Very good. I see peace as humility. Great. Magnificent, says Bonnie. Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's really, I'm really feeling great about the fact that you can all feel this with me, because I work at this. I work at this every day. And when I first started talking about micro peace, and I first started writing about this and practicing these issues, I must say that not all of the news was good news. From within the space of a week, when I first proposed micro peace, I heard from both sides of the war in the Middle East. I nearly lost a friend who was appalled, absolutely appalled, that I was not calling for action. Marches, boycotts, letters to the powerful, funding. Why was I not doing something about the horrors being done to us? Didn't I see? How could I not care? Praying for peace, she said, is unicorns and bunnies. Unicorns and bunnies, she muttered as she ended the conversation from side A. And then the next day, I got another comment from side B of the current conflagration. And it happened because I submitted a version of the micro peace paper to a friendly writers group. Now, this group is so friendly that even if they give you a correction of punctuation, they apologize first, right? So instead, I received an irate letter from a participant in which it was pointed out that the piece I had written, even the idea, was horrible. In fact, I was horrible. How could I belittle what they did to us? How could I forget? How could I not know that there will never be a peace until they were defeated for all time? So I thought about abandoning the project. I thought, oh my God, people are angry with me because I'm proposing peace. And then I realized, hey, it seems like no one is interested in peace until the other side is vanished or obliterated. And if that's the case, then peace is never possible. And again, I turned back to ire, and it was, how is it possible to speak about something that can't possibly happen? And yet speak we must. Speak we must. What can I do? I believe in peace. I can envision the possibility of peace. And I wonder what would happen if we all did. Yeah. So here's a nice comment. That meditation surprised me. So many examples of dissension becoming unity occur only when a common enemy appears, which is not peace. But in examining these moments, real peace emerges more clearly. And that's what we have to do. We have to examine these moments. Yeah. And so I think Tricia is saying when it comes to the core, both sides are saying the same thing. Well, they both are saying the same thing, which is that peace will come when you are gone or when you stop what's going on. And I think we all have a part in this, maybe a micro part, micro peace. So that's my 2 cents for it. Thank you. And I'm getting a lot of happy Earth days, so I'm happy to hear that. But, somebody's saying here, a lot of the work we do is done in silence, which doesn't make it any less important, in my opinion. And, my response to the person that said praying for peace was unicorns and bunnies, I thought, then obviously you've never tried praying for peace, because it ain't easy. It ain't easy. And it takes work to actually come in calm and not taking sides, and just envision that peace is possible. Okay. So that's it. That's it. I'm going to close with a prayer. Not a prayer, but a poem, by from Carr-Gomm. I can't pronounce his name, you understand, because these Celtic names are impossible to me. So Padraig O'Tuama, pardon me, in his book In the Shelter. And here goes the poem. And I said to him, are there answers to all of this? And he said, the answer is in a story, and the story is being told. And I said, but there is so much pain. And she answered plainly, pain will happen. And then I said, will I ever find meaning? And they said, you will find meaning where you give meaning. You will find meaning where you give meaning. The answer is in a story, and the story is not finished. So, finding meaning, giving meaning, telling the story, envisioning peace, thank you, experiencing peace. Who says we can't pray for unicorns and bunnies? Well, not me. Thank you so much. All right, well, I wish you all peace I wish the world peace, and I hope you hold it in your heart and let it grow. Thank you. Peace out. Goodbye.